Well, I'm Cullen Haynes, and I'm here with Nathan Weinberger.
Nice to meet you all.
And we're here at episode 89 of LawLive, live with Cullen Haynes. And we're doing something a bit different today. We've actually got my special guest here in the office with me because your office is literally right around the corner. And we thought it is post-COVID after all, why not? And this man has had over 15 years in the legal game and has always wanted to, start his own shingle and add value to many. And, 15 years in the game and Weinberger Lawyers for many of those years. And we're going to be talking about all things property law, how you started, some wins, and the $6.2 million wake-up call, which many of you may have already read about. But nonetheless, let's over to you there, Nathan. What's some recent wins and what's happening in your world right now?
Thank you so much. It's quite the introduction.
Of course.
Nice to be on here.
Of course.
So what we're doing at the moment, we're in the middle of a massive growth phase in our firm. We are really, we're building on momentum from a recent win that we had in the Supreme Court. It got the attention. It's just such a quintessential Sydney story. It's all about property. It's all about real estate agents, and it's all about
who we love, by the way. Absolutely.
Yes, we love real estate agents when they give us opportunities to to rely on representations. So essentially, our clients were interested in buying a house in Bronte.
This is the $6.2 million house that we're talking about. Yes.
And as the court found, and I'm only discussing findings of the court, and this is all public information, you can check out the judgment. It's on case law. The court determined that our clients were interested in the sweeping ocean views.
They were beautiful, by the way.
They were beautiful. Beautiful part of the world. It's Bronte Beach. And between the ocean views and the house, there was a hole in the ground, which was, a construction site. We asked the natural question, well, what are they doing there? What are they building there? And the agents essentially told us that there was a row of houses being built. Those houses might have a slight or a minor impact on those views, but otherwise your ocean views will be safe. They're not at risk. Those townhouses were actually approved by a DA that the council granted 2 years earlier. What the agent didn't tell our clients, and this was the nub of the case, was that that essentially the developer had paused construction on that, and they had pursued a pathway to get 120 apartments approved on that site. Now, they'd taken the first step, and they got a declaration from the planning minister to say that they can proceed with their application. The pathway for a state significant development for up to 120 apartments would be available. And what we were able to establish to the court's satisfaction is that the vendors held back that part of the story. And so, in essence, a half-truth is no truth at all. So we were told half of the truth, which was literally true, but we weren't told the full truth. And that was only a problem for the vendors and for their real estate agents because we asked the question and the vendors, through their agents, chose to answer the question. If they simply chose to say, well, go speak to your town planner, go and speak to your solicitor, we can't discuss those topics, then there is no general duty of disclosure and the vendors would have been safe. But the problem was they decided to talk about the topic. They decided to reassure our clients that the ocean views would be safe, and they weren't. So the result was that our clients were successful. They were able to rescind the contract, so they didn't have to settle on the $6.2 million price, and they got a refund of their deposit, and the vendors were ordered to pay their legal costs. The case wasn't against the real estate agents, but the real estate agents' representations were a key factual element in the case.
It's interesting. A barrister friend of mine says some people have a very elastic relationship with the truth, so that can be a downfall in some cases. But you have crafted a bit of a reputation as being the lawyer to go to for the seemingly unwinnable cases, and the left of center, too hard basket. Why is that?
Look, I'm very focused on client satisfaction, and I genuinely care about the impact on the client. So before I go forward with, taking the client on, proceeding with whatever they want to do, I try and work out what it is they are actually trying to achieve, and then I try and assist them and guide them as to whether it's realistic for them to achieve that, and if it is realistic, what's the chance of them achieving that objective? What's the cost and what's the risk? And I am very upfront with clients about that, and I say, look, your downside is you could lose this case, and you could spend a whole bunch of money and not get an outcome. Or in some cases, I might say, well, look, you've given me very good. They've organised their documents, they've presented well, and I'll say to them, look, it sounds like you have a reasonable argument here, and it might be worth pursuing given the high stakes involved. So I really care about the clients, and I care often. I'll go home, and in spare moments, I'll be thinking about my clients. I'll be thinking about my cases. Because I really do wear my heart on my sleeve. So that translates to me applying myself and putting myself in the client's shoes, and asking a lot of questions, having two ears and one mouth, so listening, often spending a lot of time to listen rather than just telling them what the law is and what the risks are before actually hearing them out. I give them a fair hearing. So
and I think that gets you so far by, like, so many people wait for their turn to speak. You're actually wanting to listen. Has that been an early trait before you started your firm, back in uni, back in school and whatnot? Has that always been you brought up with that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've worked in many environments, and I've overheard a billionaire saying, the one thing I can't stand more is snobs. So I don't feel like because I'm a lawyer I know better than the client. I listen to the client, and then there are things that they don't know which I'll try and help them with. But I'm there to help, and I'm there to listen and to guide them.
Well, I want to unpack that a little bit more, like the hero's journey, the start. When was that defining moment where you said, you know what, I'm going to leave the security of my full-time job and I'm just going to back myself?
Yeah, look, it was simply a confluence of things. So I've always wanted to run my own firm. One day, it was run my own firm, whether it be a law firm or whether it be some other project like other business ventures. And COVID happened, and it was the first part of COVID.
Oh my God!
Oh, unbelievable! Yeah. And what it did is it forced everyone to work from home, which was a concept that was totally foreign to me. I'd never worked from home before. Everyone had to, because of the situation we're all faced with, and we're all in this together, but we all had to work from home. And I was thinking, look, I'm doing this from home. I've done this for a long time. I could probably do this. I could probably set up my own office right here at home and have my own firm. So it was just good timing. I felt ready. I'd been doing it for 10 years, so it was time.
I love that. And it's a nice segue because the market is crowded with big names, putting their hat in the ring to do what you do. How do you find the gap in the market to, really cater to that boutique space, so that big law service at that boutique price point?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. Boutique for me just means removing the elements of the big firm experience that people might be less comfortable with. So sometimes if people go to a big firm, they'll get to speak to the partner, but the partner will have numerous layers of people who they delegate to, and there could be a greater expense for the client. There could also be less access to the partner. So for me, it's being about accessible, and having a safe pair of hands and a senior practitioner who pays close attention to their matters and is able to be more agile and run the case with more flexibility and agility. Because at a big firm, sometimes you have to do things in a certain way, and you have to operate in a way that's peer reviewed by other peers, and that might not work for the client. But sometimes it's the firm who has a stronger need to do something a certain way than necessarily having to listen to the client at all times. So for me, the preference is to be very client-centric and provide them a better service. And so it's not so much a price point thing. I don't particularly compete on price.
It's not about price.
It's not about price. It's about quality.
Love that. Well, what would you say you've learnt by forging your own path that you would never have learnt in a law firm or a traditional law firm, big law firm?
Yeah, forging my own path means that you have a lot of choices, and you can choose what you focus on as you grow. So this is more, I'm speaking to others in the profession who might want to start their own practice.
Yes.
And if you are starting your own practice, you should just bear in mind as to who you want to be, right? And so my sort of avatar or way of being is to be someone who helps you with a complex problem, high stakes problem, high value problem, and often that is a litigated or a disputed issue, but it can also be things like complicated transactions and complicated advice. So the litigation is really the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot of things that doesn't get into the public domain. So I might have over 25 judgments published on OSLI and case law, but beyond that, there's plenty more work that you do for clients and results that you achieve, and sometimes it happens behind closed doors and you can't talk about it, but I'm very proud of all the outcomes that I get from my clients.
And what do you think most lawyers get wrong about backing themselves and the risks of that there, Nathan? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they might, because lawyers are inherently risk managers. We manage risk for clients, so we always try and identify all the risks, and we try and identify the downside risks. So it might then create a natural fear or reluctance to back yourself and to see the value in what you can achieve for a client, and the value in yourself as an experienced practitioner, someone who's gone to uni for 5 or more years, someone who has then practiced for 10 years or 15 years, and then when a client presents you with, oh, can you do it for cheaper, or can you do part of this for free? Practitioners just jumping at that, and then them not having a real viable or pleasant experience as a business, because at the end of the day, we are in business. We all have overheads. We've got bills to pay. We've got plenty of mouths to feed, and the ability to grow a team is basically pricing your services and identifying matters and clients where they see value in the service at the price that we must charge in order to be able to fuel the engine to grow the firm. And so you need to back yourself. You need to be able to price yourself accordingly. And if what you're doing isn't of value to your marketplace, you need to find a different subset of what you're doing, or some other practice area that's adjacent to what you're doing to really unlock that value.
And feel comfortable to say no.
Yeah.
To the certain clients. Sorry, we can't meet your expectations, madam. Also,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, you said you've been drawn in the past and online as well to clients who really can't maybe communicate or present their kind of case well, and it's central to your firm that you position those clients well. How do you think, how important has that been on your journey to help those clients that maybe can't represent themselves very well, maybe the circumstance, maybe the way they communicate, etc.?
Extremely important. So sometimes the clients won't fit the mold of what a lawyer might expect from someone who has a particular type of problem. So you might have criminal lawyers who day in, day out, they will visit prisons, they will deal with all walks of life. And for them,
melting pot, everything.
It's a melting pot. And for them, they're used to handling different types of clients who might be rough around the edges, who might have communication difficulties. But then you have people who practice in commercial litigation or civil areas of litigation, then they're used to dealing by and large with sophisticated clients or with business people. So people who are already experienced at instructing lawyers or professionals, and so they expect to have a certain client that identifies in a certain way, presents in a certain way, whereas you actually have properties across society. So across society, people will have problems relating to property, which is my area, and you have all walks of life. And just because they present in a certain way, it's just the saying of don't judge a book by its cover. If I only spent 20 minutes with that person and I couldn't get to the bottom of what the problem was, what the real issues were, I would then walk away and the client would walk away from that saying, look, we can't work with each other, we can't help with each other. Sometimes it's just having the patience, just hearing the client out, listening to them, and asking a lot of questions, and sometimes letting them tell a story about irrelevant information and just letting them vent about that and then getting to the point. But sometimes it's
let them go to Pluto.
Yeah,
they'll come back.
That's right.
And there has been many cases like that, but this one in particular, where the $6.2 million contract for your clients that they managed to get the deposit back. What does it feel like the moment you realize you said, guys, the fight was worth it? And what does that feel like at the end of it for you, the clients?
So it was extremely rewarding. Not only because all along the way you are telling them that this is, and this is what I tell. This is in general what I tell clients. I'm not disclosing any advice.
No, of course.
But in general, a lawyer will always have to inform the client of the risks of litigation. Litigation is inherently uncertain. You could answer questions in the witness box, and those answers might not come across in the way that it's acceptable to the court, or that establishes your case, it proves your case. And so getting to the end of that process where it's like venturing out into rough seas and then getting back to shore. I mean, it's the feeling of we've arrived is probably the way to summarize it.
And it feels like that year 12 English is not the destination, it was the journey that changed us, I'm sure.
Yes.
So we've won this massive case in many cases before. Where does Weinberger Lawyers go from here? What's the next challenge? New financial year, 2027.
Just help more people. That's my main objective, is to help more people, but to the high standard that we have helped our clients to date. And so achieving wins or even achieving a good outcome for them in a negotiated setting. And most of our, most of the time we would prefer that clients achieve a negotiated outcome.
No, very well said. Yeah. And in terms of the common mistakes, because you are in property law, that's your specialty, what are the common mistakes you see most buyers making in residential, commercial property, or both? Like, what do you think is the common denominator? Is it emotion? Is it something else? What's the common mistakes you think, Nathan?
It may be that people rush into something without due diligence, and then they
get excited, right?
Yeah, they get excited, and then the biggest mistake though is once they find out what's wrong, they wait too long before contacting a lawyer, or they just don't contact a lawyer.
They don't know to contact a lawyer.
Is that right?
Contact
a lawyer. So where I've seen major success is when a client faced with a problem has contacted their lawyer very quickly, early, and then there's time to resolve the problem. So in that case, there was time to resolve the problem. The matter came on as an urgent duty list matter. The vendors in that case, which was the opposite, the opposing side, they had a purchase that they needed to settle on another house, and so everyone agreed that this had to be dealt with urgently within 11 days, and in that case, that was the case. Now, there's other cases where we've had to appeal orders that councils have issued, which materially impact on the operations of a business. So they issue a stop use order to close down a business. You have 28 days to appeal that. If you don't exercise your right to appeal that within that 28 days, then that order stands and it's binding. And so a failure to comply with that order, so on its terms, is a criminal offence. And so, but within the 28 days, what you can do is, if there's grounds to do so, you can appeal the order. You can commence legal proceedings in the Land and Environment Court, which is, another example of a matter we've run for a client successfully, yes. And we've challenged a stop use order, and ultimately there was a drawn out litigation. There were a couple of judgments that culminated in a negotiated outcome at the end, settled on confidential terms, but suffice to say our client remains trading at the premises in circumstances where they were asked to cease trading their business. So these are all
cracking outcomes.
Yeah.
And again, it seems like one of those curly things that most people go, I'm not going to take that matter. That's a bit of a roll of the dice. Now, I would say this is live. It is currently 5:41. So if you've got any questions, queries, comments, put them in the comments. We're beaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X. And thank you for re-listening and re-watching as well, wherever you get your podcasts. But how I watch, obviously lawyers and movies are very different, but how does this practice happen where lawyers only pick matters where they think they're going to win? Is that very common?
That could be that's certainly the case for at least some lawyers.
Yes.
I more look at based on the client objectives.
Yes.
And what
does
achieve.
winning mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? Defining the win. That's extremely important. That's a very good point you raise. It is all about defining what the win is, because the win could just be we reach an agreement on certain terms.
Absolutely. Now,
it could just be writing one letter. Parties might have been trying to negotiate for a year. You write one letter from the lawyer. The other side starts behaving differently because they've now seen that this matter has escalated. It's been escalated to legal.
It's a smack on the nose. It's like,
on the nose. Everyone sits up straight and says, well, all right, if we want to avoid, hundreds of thousands in legal costs going to court and the uncertainties of that, why don't we just reach an agreement? And for me, that's a win.
Very well said there, Nathan. And look, we all stand on the shoulders of giants in our lives. Who has been an influential mentor in your life, Nathan, and why?
That's a difficult one, because I have a number of people who I would call mentors. There are people who I consider mentors just from observation rather than from them actually sitting down with me and mentoring me one-on-one. It's just taking inspiration from the person. So I can give you one example.
Give us an example, Nathan.
My first job was at Meriton, and that was working in the office of the General Counsel, reporting directly through that office to Harry Triggerboff, who's a very successful property developer.
He owns one or two here and there.
Well, yes, one or two cities worth of apartments. Very successful. And what I learned there is, how to effectively manage a business. And one of the things they do, and this is all publicized, it's all discussed in public. There is a regular status sheet that everyone is accountable for their own work, and everyone updates that status sheet. And then, at my firm, weekly or fortnightly, that status sheet gets reviewed, and then there is feedback to the team. And so everyone's accountable for their own work. Nothing gets missed. There's no loose ends. The business runs well. And this is a way to grow and to manage more, to help more people, and provide consistently high standard of work and service. So it's also work to ensure that the team is collaborating well as the client's happy and getting results. So, and the court is satisfied. Court says, we need your affidavit within 2 weeks. It gets done within 2 weeks.
No,
hopefully most of the
time. In a perfect world.
Yes.
And you've obviously picked up a lot of lessons on the way through your life, and now starting your successful firm and continuing that journey. There are many lawyers watching now who have got a business idea, want to start their own firm in their notes app. How do they go to the next step?
Try and seek out anyone in your friendship circle who already has their own firm or has launched their own business, because you can get a lot of help just from hearing about other people's experience and directly one-on-one. If you don't have access to that, in this wonderful world that we live in, and this is a medium that people can use. You can listen to me on this podcast.
Please.
You can get some kernels of wisdom from giants, as Cullen says, in the sphere that you want to be, that you want to launch a business in. So if you want to launch a firm, listen to podcasts where you've got a law firm owner speaking to someone like Cullen, or someone that inspires you, like Warren Buffett. Like these global figures where they talk about higher order statements that you can sort of mission, sort of higher level thinking that you can access as well. So there's a lot of mentors, and they're all available on podcasts.
No, podcasts are where it's at the moment, and you can listen to them very, very passive. I'll put the bonus questions in. We'll change it up given that you're in, and then we'll end on that very cathartic question at the end. But how would your team describe you when you're not in the room?
That's a good question. You'd have to ask my team. But I could speculate.
To the best of my knowledge.
To the best of my knowledge, that they would probably describe me as an excessive coffee drinker.
Do you shake at the end of the day? Maybe matcha.
I'm now immune to the effects of coffee. It's just like a glass of water, really.
That's it.
But I think they would just probably describe me as a hard worker, and I don't take things too seriously, but then sometimes I take things extremely seriously. So it just depends on the vibe, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, my 3-year-old's a curious little chap. How would you describe your role in property law? So my son, who's 3 years old, would understand it.
Yes. So what I do is, someone buys a house, but their sister put in half the money, right? So let's call them Bob and Jane. Right?
Let's do it.
After the tire company. So you've got Bob's bought this house, but he's put his sister's money into it, and then Bob and Jane have an argument. And then Bob, because he's emotional and angry, says, "I'm just going to sell the house and not give you your money, right? It's my house now."
That's so unfair, Nathan.
It's so unfair. And so then Jane's upset. So what does Jane do? She runs off to the school principal and dobs Bob in and says, "What Bob's done here is really awful. He's taken my money, and now he's just going to sell the house and take all the money. What can we do?" And then the principal might say to Bob, "Well, look, that's not going to fly. You have to give Jane half the money." And the principal is the analogy of court, and then basically Bob and Jane need a support person or someone to advocate for them. And so what I do is I advocate. I'm there. I'm fighting the good fight for Jane, and I'm trying to get her fair share back.
No, I love that. Very succinct, very easy to understand. Yeah. My last two questions. This is a Back to the Future type question. Yeah. If you could go back, get in the DeLorean, gun it to 88, and give yourself advice at any age, a younger version of Mr. Nathan Weinberger, what age would you be, and what would be the specific gem you'd leave yourself with? Would you recognize yourself?
I would tell myself, I would tell myself in year 9, I would have a conversation with myself at that time, at that moment when I said, look, I'd love to be a lawyer. This is my goal in life. I would like to be a lawyer. I'd tell myself to start studying and start working harder at school, because if I was to take that advice, I may have gotten a higher ATAR and maybe gotten there sooner.
There you go. There we go. Study harder.
Yes.
What all lawyers want to hear, isn't that right? And my last question, this can be a morbid question, but I think it's quite cathartic, actually. When all is said and done and you shuffle off this mortal coil there, Nathan, how would you one day like to be remembered?
As someone who genuinely cares.
And you definitely do that, my friend. It comes across in the way you act. I've known you for a few years now. You came to our launch event back in the day.
Yep.
You gave us a chance when no one knew who about us. So it just flows in every interaction. I always say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Even the small things, the big things. So thank you for coming on to the show today.
My pleasure.
My
really
pleasure. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much for having me.
No, that's okay. Where can people find you? Where are you hanging out the most? Give us the spiel of where they can reach out.
LinkedIn is where I hang out the most. And you can also, I've got a website. So
Is it weinbergerlawyers.com.au?
Yeah, weinbergerlawyers.com.au. And you can look me up on LinkedIn, just, hit follow, hit connect, and I'll say hi, and we'll say hi to each other.
Absolutely. So please shout out to this behemoth. Be sure to connect on LinkedIn, and we'll be coming out wherever you get your podcast. And thank you so much for joining us today. Have a safe Wednesday. Drive or commute home safely. All the best, everyone. Make it count and take care. Hey there, Cullen Haynes here, Australia's leading broker for lawyers on LinkedIn, and here's why I want to talk to you today about my book, my new book, The Laws of LinkedIn, 23 ways to find your tribe, build your following, and make 7 figures on LinkedIn. When I started this journey 7 years ago, when we built, myself and Andrew, my business partner, we built Legal Home Loans from the ground up, the pain point for us was we were at a standing start. No one knew who we were. We had no money, we had no contacts, and basically we had to find a way to make our voice heard, talk to our tribe, the legal community, and build trust. And the only thing we had at our disposal was LinkedIn, which was and still is free. There's over 1 billion people on LinkedIn, and I wish when I started I had this book with me to guide me, because I basically distilled my 23 top leading hacks that we use to build our business to a 7+ figure, and I really want to get it out there and share it with you. So if you're